comes to a dessert. So we're going to skip around a little, probably quite a bit from what you have in front of you, but if you can find your pecan bars, and you'll see where we start, we have crust. What I did was I went ahead and melted butter, and I mixed all the dry ingredients together over here. So it's kind of a lot of butter, but it's a good place to it's a good place to splurge. It looks like more than I even thought, but we've got our brown sugar, we've got our flour in here, and just a little bit of salt. So it's just simple ingredients, and we've melted the butter, and then we're just going to mix it in with the dry ingredients. So this is probably one of the simplest crusts you'll ever make. I don't know if anybody makes their own pie crust, but
Is that parchment paper?
this is parchment, and you don't actually have to use that. I just choose to use it because it's easier to lift the dessert out afterwards. But I think Pampered Chef calls these a bar pan. It's really just like a small baking pan. You can use a Pyrex dish. You can use a round, whatever you like. I'm not one to say you have to use certain things. You can use whatever you think it'll fit in. That's what I think. And so we're just gonna quickly mix this up, and then we're just gonna pour it out into the parchment and press it down in like a crust. So we don't even have to use a rolling pin for this, which I really like. And we're not having to use a food processor or a pastry blender or anything to incorporate it all. So we're just gonna mix this up, and then we're gonna put it down in there, and then we'll make our filling. The biggest thing about this is, since it's a shortbread crust, I like to set it up in the oven for a few minutes first, just until it's not so soft. That way then when you pour your wet ingredients on the top, it doesn't absorb it, and it actually keeps a separate crust. And you can double this recipe very easily, triple it, do whatever you need to do to fit whatever pan you're doing. So we're just going to press this out very simply, and then we're going to put it in the oven. Y'all probably see I've got peaches and onions on the stove right now. That's the base for our barbecue sauce that we're making. Everybody probably has their barbecue sauce that they like to buy from the store, but I think barbecue sauce is such a simple thing to make, and really only takes a couple ingredients. So why not make it at home and throw some fruit into it to give it a little spin for the season. So that's what's cooking there, little onions and garlic, and then I cooked those down slowly, and then I added some peaches, so that whole mixture's cooking down right now, and we'll get back to that in a minute. So the biggest thing about this is getting it nice and even. You can do a lot of different things to get it even. You can use your hand. Sometimes I like to use the bottom of a measuring cup, and it just smooths it out. Some people have really small rolling pins, pastry rolling pins that work really well for this as well. But I'm kind of just forming it in there. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's really not a big deal. The one thing that I did do is I made one ahead of time, and I did a little spin off of the recipe that we have there. So what I did with that one is I did a layer of chocolate in between the pecan mixture, which I think kind of cuts it. Our pecan pie is a lot different from what people are used to. We don't use any corn syrup. I use molasses and brown sugar, which I think I personally like it. So some people either love it or they hate it. Depends on what you're used to. If you're used to a really syrupy pecan pie, then this isn't the one for you. But I love this, and I think it's a kind of a nice change. It's really good with some fresh whipped cream on top.
Maybe you could cut it with a little Jack
wax
Daniels.
paper.
You could definitely cut with a little bit of Jack Daniels, yeah. This is called the parchment paper. Yeah, they do sell it. I know they sell this is an unbleached parchment paper, but they sell it. And you know what? Even if you do this straight up in a regular pan, you don't have to grease it at all. There's quite a bit of butter. So that's the beauty of this shortbread. Yeah, that's the beauty of the shortbread. So we're gonna throw this in the oven. I like to cook this at a lower temperature. So this oven is set on a convection setting at 325. So we are gonna put it in there and let it go for a few minutes. I always get a little bit confused when I'm in a home kitchen because ovens are so different. So we'll see how long it takes. That's why I didn't put really any time on it or anything. We'll just watch it and I'll pull it when it's ready. So we're gonna start the pecan mixture right now. We've got some eggs and we're gonna stir those up. We use all local farm fresh eggs, which makes a really big difference whenever you're cooking. The yolks are a lot they're better for you for one because the chickens are out there eating all the good insects and things like that, which is great for our health. But the yolks are a lot more intense. That's what I've found. So yeah, they're a lot different.
Orange instead of
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're bright orange, which is really cool. And they vary from season to season too. Sometimes they're a little bit more fluorescent looking almost. We're gonna melt a little bit more butter in here. I'm gonna put the measurement on your recipe. I think it's like a third cup, just like 3 tablespoons or so. We're melting that. We've got our eggs over here. And what I do with this is I put wet ingredients together and then I keep the pecans separate and then I mix them in last. So I've already got the pecans chopped. Everybody likes their pecan pie a little bit different. I put some whole ones in here and then I put some chopped ones. I just put them in the food processor and let me chop them. But you can chop them by hand. You can blend them all up however you like it. But this is what we do. We get our pecans from a supplier called Ellis Brothers, and they are out of Georgia. So these are actually fresh Georgia pecans, which is really nice. And there's a huge difference from this kind of pecan. And it's great because you can go to the grocery store and find really good, nice, fresh pecans in Georgia. But some places don't have that luxury. So, and anyway, we've got our eggs, and we are going to mix in our brown sugar. I think I've got a cup of molasses and a cup of brown sugar. Now, you can certainly cut back on this if you like something a little bit less sweet. You can use agave nectar, which I think has become a pretty good ingredient. People are liking that as opposed to sugar in a lot of recipes, and I think it's really good for baking. And we're going to do a dressing with it later on. So we're going to measure out our brown sugar. You can use light or dark brown sugar. It really doesn't matter. And we're just going to do our cup here. And we'll put this off to the side. We're going to do our molasses, and we're not really going to measure this. We're just going to put it in and measuring molasses is not very fun. It's like measuring honey or maple syrup. It's one of those things you don't want to have to deal with. So as you can see, this is quite a bit darker, and you can see with the final product that it's a lot darker than your store-bought pecan pie. So we're just going to mix all this in. I like to put a little bit of flour. I think it just helps bind all the ingredients together. A little bit of vanilla. So here's our vanilla extract. And I actually didn't write it down on the list, but I always set it with a little bit of heavy cream, just to kind of lighten it up because you've got a lot of heavy ingredients, and I just like to put a little bit in there. But you can certainly do without. Just like you can definitely do without the flour, but I like it for setting up purposes.
So how much cream would that be?
Probably gonna put about 2 tablespoons of cream in there. And you can put more if you like, you can put less, just to try to help achieve the color that you like. And you can always, you could do half and half. You could do some molasses, you could do some agave nectar or honey, whichever you like. And this is the beauty of this recipe is if you follow the basic recipe, you can, half the amount. So if you've got a whole cup of molasses typically, and you want to cut back on the molasses because you're not a big fan of molasses, then you just do, maybe half of the molasses, half honey. So it's a real easy thing to substitute out. So What do you think? 2 tablespoons?
Yeah.
Looks like 2 tablespoons to me.
Use canned milk or evaporated milk instead of.
You can, but I don't know really the direct, because I've never done it. I know there are some recipes with that. I haven't made this recipe with that, so I can't tell you to put it in there as a
Use 2
substitution.
tablespoons.
Just,
Yeah. Oh, in place of the cream?
Place of the
Yeah,
cream.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. We're spoiled at the restaurant. We have all unsalted butter and we have real butter and we have heavy cream on hand. But a lot of people don't keep that in their house, so you don't have to use it. That's why I say it's definitely not a must-have. All right, now we've got the melted butter, and this again is one of those kind of add-ins that we do. You don't have to use this, but nothing wrong with splurging every once in a while. You've got your nuts in there, which are good for you, so you might as well splurge on the other items, right? Okay, so it's just simple, and we're just going to pour it in, and
There's one good ingredient in there, you're allowed to do anything.
exactly. If
It's
you
health
know,
food.
it works. I think it works. All right, so
if you like to add bourbon, which we do,
yes,
do you have to cut down on some of the liquid?
I would cut back on all the liquids just a little bit then. Yeah, I
A little of this, a little of that.
yeah. Just work with it, and you'll. As long as you keep the eggs about the same, you can cut back on your other liquid ingredients by just a little bit. I mean, I would say, honestly, you could probably put the bourbon almost in place of the butter if you wanted to. Nothing wrong with that. All right, so we've got our crust. It's not quite set to where I want, but if everybody can kind of see it.
About how long do you use?
I think it's been in there for maybe 5 minutes. We'll probably do another 5 minutes. It'll start to dry out a little bit, and that's the idea, is that
Yeah.
it keeps the separation from the other ingredients. And you could even do this at a higher temperature and then turn it down. I think because of how dark this mixture is, I don't like to have the temperature of the oven up really high, because it'll brown a lot. As you can see, they end up really dark. My growers have gotten better until this year. They've gotten better about being able to figure out what's going on in their gardens, and they can usually tell us, okay, we'll talk to them on a Sunday or Monday, and then I know what I'm going to get by Tuesday or Wednesday, which is great. And then we can build our menu, and then for the weekends, when we try to build our dinner menu, then we just build everything around that. We came up with a really good format this year. Is that we're not even putting our vegetables on the menu for dinner. It's kind of a get what you get sort of thing, which some people really appreciate. I think it scares some people a little bit, but so people that don't like beets are kind of out of luck sometimes when they get their dish with beets on it. But we usually make exceptions and try to make everybody happy and give them something that they like. But what we do each week is we end up getting what we get, and then we take all that, and I write a list of things, and then I have my menu, and I say, okay, this week the trout is going to get zucchini and squash, or whatever it may be, which is really nice. And then we just print that up and then give it to the server, and then each server knows then what's going to go with each item. Usually for the weekend, but sometimes by Saturday night, if I got a small delivery of zucchini and squash, then we're out of zucchini and squash, and then we go to cabbage or whatever it may be. So we're pretty resilient, and we just kind of go with what we have. So it varies from week to week, but it's really become fun. It's become very challenging for the kitchen. I keep my staff on their toes, that's for sure, because they never know what they're gonna. My vegetable prep guy, I think I drive him the most crazy, because we're getting stuff in on Thursday afternoon that we're serving on Thursday night, and that's a lot different from most kitchens, because usually you know exactly what you're serving each day, and everybody comes in and they do the same thing, and we're always doing something different. And to me, that's what keeps it fun and exciting, and hopefully that's what keeps it fun and exciting for our guests as well. So you saw I just mixed that up, put it on top of the crust, and you can put it right on top of a hot crust. Same with if you were doing like lemon bars, you would do your mixture, pour it right on top of the hot crust, and put it right back in the oven.
And how long do you?
We're gonna watch it. Until it's set up. Until it's set up. You know, the one that I made earlier, it took 20 minutes. But I'm using a completely different oven in the restaurant, and I even had to turn the temperature down. I started it at 350 and it started to get too dark, so then I turned it down to 300, and after 20 minutes it was completely set up and ready to go. So, alright, so we've got dessert kind of out of the way. We're going to watch that. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and I graduated high school and thought that I needed to go to a traditional college, and I failed miserably at it. So I went to Clemson University for a year and a half and wasted a lot of money. Ended up in Charleston, South Carolina, went to culinary school, and I've worked in restaurants since I was 14 years old. Started bussing tables, and always like had kind of a draw to the kitchen, but never really had the guts to pursue it. And I just thought, well, hey, you know, maybe I just like the industry. So I thought, well, and then I thought maybe I like nutrition, and then I thought maybe I'd want to teach, but just ended up in culinary school, worked in some great restaurants in Charleston. I became a private chef, and I really enjoyed the intimacy and the one-on-one of being a private chef. So I traveled around with one family and worked for one family for, I ended up working for them for about 2.5 years, and was based out of Charleston. And then my husband and I moved in, well, we were kind of moving around, but we moved to Pickens County, and this space became available, which used to be Three Sisters. It was across the street from the courthouse. They were looking for somebody to take over the restaurant and do something else. So we took over the already existing restaurant, and we brought in 61 Main, and we wanted our focus. I kind of just took over a lot of the lunch menu that was in place, changed a lot of the products, tried to make things a little bit more exciting, a little bit more fresh. You know, we hand cut all of our French fries. We, you know, using certain oils and just upping the ingredients. But my focus was really on dinner, because that's what I wanted to do. And that's when we started using all the farmer's produce, and it's kind of just evolved from there. And now dinner is as busy as can be. It's great. You know, that's my fun thing. I really like lunch. Lunch is great, and we like to serve a good for you lunch with great products, but dinner's kind of our fun part, where we can be really creative, and that's kind of where it's gone.
Where do you draw your employees from?
Well, I actually started off with a lot of the original staff that was at the restaurant, which is really neat. The sous chef stayed, and his daughter and his son actually both work at the restaurant as well, and they his daughter's worked there since she was 14 years old, and they've all been there since day one. But I do like to try to draw in culinary students. There is, you know, with Chattahoochee Tech and their culinary program, we try to bring them in. I try to let high school students come in. I think it's a really good thing to teach kids at a young age to have some sort of, you know, skill, and I think working in a restaurant's a great way. So but we really don't have a lot of turnover, which is nice. So I don't have to do a lot of hiring as of yet. So see, this one came out much lighter than that one over there. So everyone can see. The oven did very good.
Thank you.
It hasn't set off the smoke detector yet.
No, we've done very well. We've done very, very well.
When we complete these two, we'll have enough to get everything out of the existing trailers. The third one over here is the last phase, which is going to have room for growth, and what we see coming down the road with either paid medical care or what have you. We have, at this point in the design process, we've finished the schematic design on these two buildings, and a very rough design on the third one, adequate enough to get costing information and we've stopped right now, I'll mention that later, until we regroup a little bit and see where we're headed. The funding requirements for the first phase are a little bit less than $900,000. We've already paid for the design, the schematics, and the environmental work and most survey. The next building is roughly $1.8 million, and the last one is the least expensive, somewhere around $850,000. To get the first building started with the present numbers we have, will take us, we have $100,000. I think, Barry.
Got a little more.
A little more than that.
But we need about $800,000 somewhere to start. We thought we were going to get a $500,000 grant from the state under the HUD Community Block Development Grant Program. We found out a week ago we didn't get the $500,000. We didn't make the cut. Out of 93 applicants, 63 got it. We didn't get it. We thought we were just a shoo-in. We thought we were so wonderful and what we were doing was so good and serving so many people to take care of their lives. There's no way that we were going to get it. Didn't get it. Carol and Jeff Dining and company are trying to figure out why we didn't get it. So we don't go down the same trail again. Lots of discussion, lots of reasons, speculation. We'll get back to that later on. So right now we're at a stop as far as getting started. We are going to go through some meetings the next month to see what we want to do and what we want to use the money we've got for it. We want to start and hope the money keeps coming from all of you and the various other people we're looking to for money, and start building. One thing it did for us, looking for a silver lining on not getting a grant, is the grant required us to work under the federal procurement regulations, which those of you who've been in the world before know it's a lot of ritual you got to go through and some restraint on how you do your business, as well as had to do work under the Davis-Bacon wage rates, which is another whole thing, which in some cases would have cost us more. Some places would have probably been the same thing what people pay now. But the main thing it concerned us with was how we use the volunteers. All of you are familiar with Habitat. That was the approach we were planning on using with the volunteers. We were going to go out and ask contractors, ask people. The Charities Foundation, the diocese, allowed us often to help us, assist us in getting volunteers to work. These are fine, qualified people. We've had some contractors who said they would come in and do some things for us. Just give us more flexibility there to get it accomplished that way. So hopefully the number we have is the number we're not bid it tomorrow under the federal procurement regulations. Hopefully we can get that number down as we go down the trail. Unfortunately, Reverend Jimmy Lewis, who was chairman of the board when we got all involved in this thing, and was, don't worry about it, Bill, we go get it, don't worry about it. He had to resign, left First Baptist Church, went to Northeast Georgia on me. So Jimmy needs to come back and do his magic. But we're very hopeful that the community will come forward and get some money to do this. And I think we need to let Ed Delaney, who's also a part of our group as far as seeking donations in the world of the building as well as in the world of continuing. It's a good staff operator, which is a good size piece of money yourself. Ed?
Thank you, Miller. We have two things that we have to be considered with. One is the day-to-day operations of Good Samaritan. For the last 10 years, going on 11 years now, we have been supported totally by both volunteers and financial donations from the community. There has been virtually no federal or state funds involved in supporting Good Samaritan. This has been a work of both the community, and we have a part-time development director whose sole function is to seek grants from charitable institutions. That's where our funding has come from. So now we have a need for not only that funding on an ongoing basis, but we have the need for the building fund, the monies to build this building. This meeting this evening is actually the very first meeting of its kind that I'm aware of. I don't think anything else has taken place yet. This is the very first chance to talk to people in the community about the building and about the need for funds. I'm going to focus just on that this evening, and we can talk about operational funds at a later date. You'll see a lot of flyers going about for the hoedown coming up in September. That's really a fun event. Ticket prices are $75 a person. Banks and Shane will do the, it's going to be the band. It's going to be held at the Lowe Estate Barn, which is basically Mike Lowe, Riker Lowe, the folks that own Jasper Jeep. It's their personal barn. It's just an absolutely fantastic place. The dance floor most clubs would love to have. There's a picnic area. It's all under roof. And I mean, it's going to be a great evening, a lot of fun. Because of the way we set this up, our expenses are very, very low. Last year, the hoedown on a much, I think, smaller scale was actually the largest fundraising event that Good Samaritan held. It's a lot of fun. I'd urge everybody here to purchase tickets. You'll have some wonderful opportunities there to bid on extremely fun vacations at probably 50 cents on the dollar. Banks and Shane, if you have not ever heard them do a hoedown type of thing, just an absolute riot. It's just a great, great time. So I'd encourage everybody to do that. But this evening, what we're asking everybody to do is, if you would, dig as deep as you can, come up with a little bit of check. Every check that's written this evening goes directly to the building fund to get our folks out of the trailers, to try to keep them dry when it rains, and to provide really a lot better quality of care for the folks that really need it. To that end, I think this is the third check that Betty and I have written this week, but here's our check. And if you would, anybody that can, come
Or
up.
if you want to, you want to use this envelope, if you want to pledge, you can. We don't have pledge cards printed yet. But if you want to, if you don't feel like you can give as much as you would like in one check tonight or in the next month or two, but are willing to support us on an ongoing basis in the building campaign each year or each quarter or whatever, you can note that on the envelope. I'd like to make a pledge of and give a certain amount, so if you can't, that if you could give us more in the long run that way, that certainly works for us. And also there, I don't know what amounts, and Ed you might know, or Miller, but there will be the opportunity to name rooms, examining rooms, or pharmacy rooms, or whatever, depending on, I don't know what amount of money that involves, but if there's, or if you, especially there's so many of you here who have a long, long history with Good Sam since it was first just an idea. If they're doctors who are no longer with us here on earth or no longer with us here at Good Sam, and many of you know them, you could always give it in honor or in memory of people that are. So, and that can be noted on the envelope if you want to use the envelope.
I'm also thinking about Vaughn Hinton tonight, because he was so active in the building.
And Dr. Wilbur. John Spitznagle.
Yeah.
For sure. There is some thought that we would name one of the primary areas within the hospital, not a specific examining room, but maybe a reception area or whatever, in the name of the founding physicians. There's a lot of thought going forward on that thing. I don't know that we've established the numbers yet in terms of what the donation would be to actually name a room, but that will be an opportunity moving forward, I'm sure, and we're trying to be as creative and as interesting as we can to help with the process of moving forward.
Let me just point out that of the people who were the initial movers and shakers in this whole thing, there were every bit as many nurses as there were doctors. That's true.
And I think that's an excellent point. And I think that, what we might do is do some kind of a plaque honoring all of the initial folks
Yeah.
and name it, you know.
Yeah.
Again, we're not hardcore on anything. What we're really doing is seeking your best suggestions. What do you think we should do? How should we go about this? And, you know, most importantly, the thing that's holding us up at this point, the loss of the $500,000 community development block grant was a real kick in the solar plexus.
What can the county commissioners do for us? What can the mayor of Jasper do for us? What can our local officials do for us?
That will all be, I mean, those folks were all involved in the initial, as well as state senators and a number of other deals. At this point, I don't think we understand why it was that we weren't given the grant, because we really thought that we were an absolute lock based on the performance, based on the number of people, based on the quality of the care that we give, and we are absolutely the lowest cost health provider anywhere in the United States. Nobody can provide health care at anything approaching the cost that Good Samaritan does. So right now it's a mystery why it didn't happen. We'll get to the bottom of it, we'll figure out what it was, and we'll try to get it again. But in the meantime,
So is there an appeal process?
No.
No.
this is you get it or you go home.
You can apply
Start
next-
over.
You can apply
You can
next year.
apply next
Apply
year.
next year.
You can continue to apply.